Hello, I'm Terry Christensen, and this is Valley Politics. Just about everybody in the Valley complains about traffic congestion and transportation. But can mass transit solve these problems for our low-density valley? Today we'll talk with Nuria Fernandez, the General Manager of the Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority, or VTA. With 2,100 employees and a $475 million operating budget, VTA operates our buses and light rail and plays a role with train service, highways, pedestrian and bikeways, and transit-oriented development. Next year, VTA will bring BART service to Milpitas and northeast San Jose, and planning is well underway to bring BART to downtown San Jose. But will BART be too little too late, or are Lyft and Uber the transportation of the future? Later, we'll hear what some Valley locals think about VTA service, and then Illyasha Peete will tell us about the work of Breathe California. Then stay tuned for part 2 of our interview with Tom McEnery on Where Are They Now? Tom was mayor of San Jose in the 1980s when the powers of the office of mayor were significantly enhanced. All this next on Valley Politics. Welcome everyone, and welcome Nuria Fernandez of the Valley Transit Authority.
Well, thank you. Happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. Let's start by having you tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to us here in the Valley.
Well, I am a civil engineer, and about 30 plus years ago, I just happened to be given an opportunity to work in public transit and develop a love affair with public transportation. Starting back in Chicago, It took me to Washington, D.C., then New York, and now here.
And you're general manager of the Valley Transit Authority.
I am the general manager.
So what's that job?
Well, it's a big job.
Yeah.
It entails more than just public transportation. As you may know, Terry, the Valley Transportation Authority is also responsible for congestion management in our county.
So that means expressways?
Expressways, freeways.
Yeah.
We work very closely with Caltrans, who does not have a district office here. So we are, in fact, the de facto Caltrans extended office to serve our county. And then we're also responsible for bicycle and pedestrian, so that coordinating either guidelines or working closely with cities so that we can provide that full network of connection. Everything from being a pedestrian to wanting to drive in your automobile, we take care of it.
And what about trains?
Trains are the best thing happening. Yes, we do. Public transportation includes both the buses, trains, and also paratransit services for those who are not able to get to our stations or bus stops or use the public transportation for many reasons.
How long have you been in the Valley?
It will be 4 years in a few weeks.
And you've worked in some other pretty big cities with pretty sophisticated mass transit systems. What's different about working here?
I think it's just the size of not only the amount of assets that those other transit agencies had, but then the amount of people they served. I grew up in an urban area. I've always worked in dense urban areas. So when I started out in Chicago, the Chicago Transit Authority was also responsible for buses, trains, and paratransit. Did the same thing in Washington, D.C. My largest transit system was New York, where we move 8.5 million people a day. So that, I think it's just the scale, but the challenges are the same. Funding, the need for more funding, the need for more services, more access points, and then of course with the added responsibility of the streets and roads and highways and freeways and expressways, the need for more funding to rehabilitate those and make sure that they continuously can absorb the amount of traffic that we have in our region.
Well, this shows Valley Politics, so I have to ask you, are the politics different here from where you've worked before?
No.
Harder? No, they're not different.
They're not different at all. There's a lot of interest. The elected officials are responsible for their constituents, and constituents, when they are something that they're not happy with, they know where to go. and how to get change, how to effect change.
Yeah, we should say your Valley Transit Authority Board of Directors is entirely composed of elected officials, cities and the county.
That's
right?
correct. All
So
15 cities are represented either directly by a member of their city council or through what we call our city groupings. If they're in the west, the south, or in the north, they have a representative for that city grouping, but all the other cities have a representative. And the county has 2 representatives on
San
that board.
Jose has the biggest delegation, 5 of the 15 members, I think.
San Jose has 6.
6, plus a couple of county supervisors who have represented San Jose. Does San Jose throw its weight around a little bit on the board?
Well, as a large city, it has a lot of challenges when it comes to infrastructure. So there's, of course, they have a larger staff that's focused on their projects and trying to get funding for their projects. But all in all, we provide the same level of services to all 15 cities and the county, because we believe that the county as a whole is what makes us strong. And this is a very important part of the region, and it's a very important part of the country.
Yeah.
So that whether you're in a large city or a small city, VTA is going to work with you. And we've had a great success working with cities.
I have to ask you, there's been a rumor that you've been looking at jobs elsewhere. Are you here to stay? Are you shopping around?
I am not looking for any job
good.
elsewhere, so I can just put that rumor to rest. But I will not, I think it's fair to say that there are a number of transit systems that have reached out to me
Yeah, I'll bet.
to determine if I had an interest in relocating to their city. But we've got such amazing opportunities here in Santa Clara County, and with the advent of a BART service and all the construction that still yet has to happen with phase 2, I think that I would not change this job.
Yeah, well, you've got a really big project ahead of you with BART. Maybe that's a 10-year project, so I hope you're here to stay.
Yeah.
stay it through.
Not quite sure about the 10 years, but yes, at least get it kicked off and moving on the right track.
Well, let's talk about BART a little bit. Starting with the new stations at Milpitas and Berryessa, there's a little delay in their opening. When are they actually going to open? When are we going to have service from San Jose and Berryessa up to San Francisco and Oakland?
Yes, well.
And so they can come here, of course.
Of course, and you know, as a matter of fact, the first phase, what we refer to as phase 1 of the BART extension program, the 10 miles, that is going to be completed by the end of this year. The line segments where all the tracks are, all that is in place. The stations we just have a few more things to do within each of the 2 stations, but our intent is to have it all ready so that BART can begin testing. So right now what you're seeing, and if those individuals who live along the corridor, what they're seeing is a BART train running back and forth, and that's part of our testing. There are 3 testing phases that need to happen in addition to once it's the first 2 are ours, the static and dynamic testing, and then BART has to do testing themselves. But when all is said and done, the revenue service date will be established by BART, and that will be after all of the safety certifications have been completed both by CPUC and BART.
Any idea when that's going to be?
Well,
mid-year, late next year?
Right now we are tracking for June of 2018. June. Which, by the way, is the date that was in our full funding grant agreement with the federal government.
Yeah, there was a time when you thought it might be ready to run earlier.
The first 5 years of the project, it was tracking about 6 months early.
Yeah.
And then you get to testing, and then the purpose is really to ensure that we have a reliable and safe system to provide service to the customers. That's our purpose, and we're going to be focused on that. It's not speed. It's to make sure that it's integrated, it's reliable, it's safe.
So that's BART Phase 1 for Santa Clara County, and that brings it down to Milpitas and Berryessa
in northeast San Jose.
Mm-hmm. BART Phase 2 brings it to 28th Street, the Church of Five Wounds, to downtown, to the Diridon station, and Santa Clara.
That's right, 6 miles.
That's the big one.
That's the big one. It's big only because of the 6 miles, 5 of those miles are in underground in a subway.
Yeah, it's actually fewer miles than BART Phase 1, which is 10 miles, right?
BART Phase 1, 10 miles, 2.3 billion. BART Phase 2, 6 miles,
Ooh.
4.7 billion.
Ooh, yeah. And there's some question, in my mind at least, about the availability of that 4.7 billion, especially the federal piece of it, because you're counting on about a third of that for BART to come from the feds, right?
Yes, we're counting on about $1.5 billion from the federal government.
And is that going to happen with the current administration?
We are very optimistic that it will happen, given the significance of the project to the region and to the country. This project is going to provide the connection from the east through San Jose to the west, that is the peninsula, creating that full circle around the bay, and tying into some very important job centers. So with high-speed rail coming in at Diridon, we will have at the Diridon station itself the busiest and largest transportation hub in the Western Hemisphere and in California, for that matter.
So you think Donald Trump's going to sign off on it?
This project is, along with many other transit projects that are in the books, they're very significant. And when it comes to the economic vitality of our nation, I think that there's nothing best than to invest in a good public transportation system. And our voters thought so too, because they supported, with this latest vote, 72%, to provide the remaining of the funding necessary for BART Phase 2, in addition to some very needed infrastructure projects.
But you have a little legal challenge with that money too, the sales tax money. It's on hold right now.
Yes.
Tax is being collected, but you're not spending it because of a lawsuit.
There was a lawsuit, it was dismissed, and the plaintiff has filed an appeal, and now we're waiting for
So
that
we're
to
waiting
be
to see
resolved.
if the appeal goes
So
any further.
in the meantime, there's $40 million that we have collected is sitting in escrow. And a lot of projects and cities and the county chomping at the bit, waiting for access to those dollars so we can get this needed infrastructure program underway.
Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Let's talk about buses for a minute anyway, because
Sure.
that's a key element of the whole system, and BART's not going to be very successful if the bus system isn't a successful linkage to it. But while employment has risen in the valley, bus ridership has fallen. I looked at your numbers, and there was over 150,000 riders daily in the year 2000, and last year it was about 104, 105,000. What's going on with that? Why is bus ridership declining?
Bus ridership is declining, and you know, I wish I knew exactly what the problem was, but there's multiple things that could have had an impact on the bus ridership.
Like Uber and Lyft?
Well, I do believe that the transportation network companies, the Ubers and Lyfts of the world, would have caused some of
Some
it.
impact.
But we also saw an increase in the number of motor vehicles in this county. Terry, as you may recall, the VTA collects about $10 per vehicle, part of the vehicle registration fee. And this past year alone, there were over 1 million vehicles registered in Santa Clara County. And
That's a lot.
we're about 2 million people
2 million
here.
people, yeah.
So with 1.4 million
Wow.
vehicles registered, that just sends the message that people will still drive if they have access to capital that would allow them to buy a vehicle. They will buy that vehicle. And if you think back to the last century when the Santa Clara visionaries were planning this great area, it was really planned for the automobile.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it makes it very difficult for public transportation to serve a network that was really built for the automobile, that encouraged more of a suburban environment style of living and a campus style of corporations building their businesses here.
Well, that really was going to be my next question, because we're such a low density valley, it's really hard to make mass transit work, to make a bus line or a BART line or a light rail line a convenient walking distance, 2 or 3 blocks for everybody. How do we go forward with that? Is this a land use planning issue, really?
It's a combination of land use. Now, remember, the land use is pretty fixed.
Yeah.
So it's a determination by cities that they want to do things differently. with the new development opportunities that are coming to their own borders, but then also working on transforming the existing network of streets and major arterials throughout their cities. But coming back to the whole issue of how do we make public transportation more attractive? You know, public transportation is successful, especially buses, if it's available, accessible, and frequent. But in addition to all of that, it needs to be at a distance that people want to walk to a bus stop. No one's going to drive to a bus stop. And that has become a challenge for us. And many areas where we provide bus service, there are no sidewalks. And people are literally standing on grass next to a pole waiting for a bus, which does not send the right message and a feel of safety and protection.
We are starting to do more transit-oriented development, and I know VTA is involved in this, the city is. Yes. You know, I'm involved with some of the urban village planning in San Jose, so that's a way that we can build ridership and really change the land use structure of the valley.
And that's really the purpose. And that's one of the reasons why the federal government encourages transit-oriented development and has allowed us to use transit-oriented development a quarter mile from the center of a station, of a rail station, to just acquire the property and then encourage density, because that density is what's really going to feed into the ridership. But we also work with cities to ensure that as they're considering permits for development, that those developments are built where infrastructure already exists, that's water, sewer, electricity, and there's a public transportation route.
And there is, I think, building public support for that kind of development.
Absolutely, absolutely.
With that, we're out of time.
Oh.
We have to conclude.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you very much for being with us, Nuria.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Now let's hear what some locals think about VTA service. Then we'll hear from Illyasha Peete on the work of Breathe California.
I really like VTA, but there are areas that I think could be improved. I would appreciate if I could get any kind of bus service that goes down 4th and Jackson.
San Jose has a reasonable, good bus transportation considering the situation, the time we're living in, and the complexity of the time. San Jose is on top.
The fare and the seating, there's no argument there. So, and it's really like a quiet ride. To compare to other light rails I've rode on.
I love using the VTA, the light rail, to get to the airport. I work downtown. I work at San Jose State, so for me, I could hop on if I have enough time. I hop on, and it takes me right to the metro stop and take the shuttle in. It's really easy to use, and it's $2, so it's a lot cheaper than doing a cab.
Hello, my name is Illyasha Peete, and I am the Executive Director of Breathe California in the Bay Area, a nonprofit organization based in San Jose, California. As a clean air and healthy lungs leader, we fight lung disease in all of its forms, and we work within our community to promote lung health. Our 4 pillar programs include our Sleep Safe, which serves those who suffer from sleep apnea and simply cannot afford the medical equipment to sleep safe. We strive to be the premier sleep apnea resource for our community and therefore offer affordable sleep apnea testing, educational services, and calibrations right in our office. Our next program is the Asthma Education and Empowerment, where we promote asthma education and empower asthmatic children by equipping them with the tools and the resources to better manage their condition. This information is provided in the classroom setting as well as at our annual Camp Super Stuff. The Tobacco and Advocacy Program supports and educates the youth, communities, and organizations in creating a better lifestyle to eliminate tobacco use. This program assists those who are trying to stop smoking through our Ash Kickers program, which is a smoke cessation program. Finally, our Environmental Stewardship Program provides educational experiences geared to reduce indoor and outdoor pollution. We hope that by increasing awareness of the causes of global warming, we will be able to improve air quality. Breathe California of the Bay Area provides educational resources and workshops for seniors, worksite wellness, and TB education. Lastly, thanks to Rebuilding Together of Silicon Valley, we recently had our over 30-year-old building renovated. We invite you to come out and visit our office and learn more about the services and programs we have. If you'd like to offer your time, talent, or treasure, please visit us at www.breathebayarea.org or call us at 408-998-5865. Thank you, and breathe safe.
And now here's part 2 of our interview with Tom McEnery, mayor of San Jose in the 1980s.
Yeah, the arena was critical. To me, in 1988, I'd been mayor for 6 years. And I picked up my share of enemies, and there'd been tremendous dislocation downtown. I still think when I walk First Street and Second Street, I think about some of the merchants were there. And I had my fingerprints on some of the problems that happened to the last ones left. And, to this day, it gives me gives me a very bad feeling, because there were some great people that didn't last through that. It was similar to the massive clearance of downtown, where Hart's and Hales and Farmers Union and Smiling Bill Salachis and all of these places downtown that were fantastic businesses employing thousands of people were just kind of eradicated without a thought. That happened in that period of time, but it kind of had to happen in order to move to the next phase.
So hundreds of millions of dollars invested in downtown. Do you think we got our money's worth, looking at it today?
Well, I would say, everything always has to be a comparison. When you talk about the arena, that was the final imprint on whether we're going to be Little San Jose or we're going to take a step forward. And I think you probably know that the polls before it showed there was absolutely no way it was going to pass.
Right, the weekend before.
Yeah. Now, and for 2 weeks before. 2 weeks before is when I saw the poll. We started up here and it faded. But look, you can understand it. You'd seen project after project after project.
Yeah.
Anybody who sees a government project and says, I think they're going to screw it up, they've got the wind in their back, because most government projects are screwed up. I have to say, was I nervous before that election? Absolutely. Because I would have felt it was a tremendous failure by me, I guess, to get to the crux of your question. But I never thought people would vote against it. Even when I'd speak in Willow Glen or the Rose Garden or places like that where, I had people out there that were friends of my grandmother's, friends of my parents, who would come up to me after and say, Tom, we just can't vote for this. I think it's gonna, people are gonna tailgate in the Rose Garden, or people are gonna do that.
Yeah.
And I used to, I used to try a few of, at one time I had a good sense of humor, a few jokes, that I try to loosen up the audience. And the audience sometimes in those places I mentioned were so nervous about that project, because the opposition, again, had a lot of clear shots at a big government project, I felt like I was trying to put a nuclear reactor in the center of the city instead of a place that is going to be used. Remember, there was no sports team in the outing. Ice hockey was,
right.
You and I could talk about, let's put a highlight place there, and it would have been as familiar to me. But it was going to be something all the way across the spectrum of, all ethnicities, all ethnic groups would be able to use it just as they had. So when it passed, it just gave me a very, very warm feeling. So I would say I was on kind of a high cruise control for quite a while after that, because the people voted for what I thought was correct. And I think we know in some elections when people vote a different way than we think is absolutely the right way, you go, gee, how could they do that? So it continued my confidence in people in San Jose.
Why was that voted on at all? The money was from the redevelopment agency, right?
Yeah, because there was a very effective campaign how terrible this was going to be for the city, and some powerful people, even my predecessor Janet Gray was against it, And it was, it was pretty easy to say, well, let's not put that 100 million into that. Let's do it for X, Y, Z. Well, the city budget, spends literally $1 billion on cops, on firefighters, on parks and recreation people and stuff. We basically took the cost of 2 or 3 major sewer interceptors and a couple of reactors and as major streets, and put it into what the arena was. They say nobody voted against it if you ask them today.
I don't remember how I voted, but I'm sure I voted for it.
Did you?
Since you asked today.
Did you? Yeah.
I honestly don't remember.
Yeah. Well, I certainly hope you're correct in what you're saying today. Anyway.
I voted for it, absolutely. But it's been a huge success, so congratulations. Well, back to the arena briefly, you were in kind of an awkward position advocating for it because one of the criticisms of you and your time as mayor was your involvement as an advocate for downtown San Jose. At the same time, you were a property owner downtown. So there was the allegation of conflict of interest. I know that came up in the arena campaign, and certainly it had come up before. How did you handle that?
Well, I think I handled it by telling the truth. My family had run small businesses down in San Pedro Square for 4 generations. Unlike the other people who decided to sell or move to Palm Springs or whatever they did, we hung in there for some pretty tough times. By the time I ran for mayor, San Pedro Square was set. We had restaurants, and the great San Pedro Square Arch, we paid for that. The city didn't pay for that. So I really think a more accurate, perhaps subjective opinion would be, and I think others might share this, is that I think I pulled up the rest of the downtown to what San Pedro Square already was. I'd add, just as an addendum, at the end of my time as mayor, San Pedro Square economically was in much worse shape than it was when I became mayor, but hey, that's people gave me the honor of being mayor, and I didn't vote on anything around there, and I'm comfortable with that.
Right, you had a conflict of interest agreement not to vote on property redevelopment funding for property in a certain circumference around.
Right.
Around
And if I
family
did, and if I
property.
didn't, I wouldn't have voted it anyway
Right.
because again, my family's carried a certain reputation, and I didn't want to do anything to diminish that. I think we have seen in government when you lose any kind of moral authority, you're just contributing chink by chink to the situation we observe now today, when confidence in government at all levels, maybe not so much in cities as would be a fact, couldn't be much lower. And quite honestly, Terry, I think most people in office have richly deserved that kind of feelings toward them.
We'll hear more from Mayor McEnery next month. Meanwhile, you can catch up on previous shows on our website at createtvsj.org or on YouTube by searching for Create TV San Jose. And you can let us know what you think about our show and suggest guests or future topics by email at valleypolitics@createtvsj.org, on Twitter at valley_politics, and by following us on Facebook. And now that's all, folks. Thanks for watching Valley Politics. See you next time.